Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So here I want to cover my wizard build for module 27, the recent expansion Spelljammer. With it comes a new trial which is pretty much heaven for a wizard damage dealer. They got everything going for them here. Everything in their favor compared to some other damage dealer classes. But with that aside, this build is going to focus on this content and maximizing your effectiveness within it. I've done some experimenting what abilities to use, talking with other wizards and such, and I've optimized my build for this trial. So let's cover it. But just a quick note, if you're not endgame yet, it'll still have a lot of useful things based on what powers to use in what content. A lot of this can be used in all content throughout Neverwinter. I'll also cover, for those of you who aren't min-max endgame yet, don't have all the best gear, alternatives you can use. There'll be timestamps on the play bar below where you can skip to any section you're most interested in. First of all, we're going to start with our power setup. What abilities do you want to be using? Well, throughout the trial and in most content, you just want to run Chilling Cloud, particularly for the final hit being a multi-target attack. So when you do have lots of enemies like this, you'll benefit by getting a bit of splash damage on them. Otherwise, you would back that up with Magic Missile to get your Arcane Mastery stacks. However, with Module 27, we've got a new Insignia bonus, which you can run Enchanter's Hex. Will not stack with multiple Enchanter's Hex, so only use one of them, and you can use now the at-will Ray of Frost. Now, because there's lots of enemies in this trial, and you don't often just have one target, you'll generally not want to use Ray of Frost. You'll want to have Chilling to have that splash damage. It'll net you more than just having Enchanting and Ray of Frost. But Ray of Frost has a bug where it can trigger Enchanter's Hex, at least for now. It may get changed at any time. So every single hit of Ray of Frost basically is doubled because of Enchanter's Hex. Enchanter's Hex doesn't benefit from all your stats, so it won't be exactly double like Ray of Frost, or be more, you might think, because the magnitude of this is 100, where Ray of Frost is only 65. But it will be close to the damage of Ray of Frost, so you nearly double your effectiveness of your at-wills and you'll end up with more damage than just Chilling Cloud. But you'll only use that in a pure single target boss fight, where there's only one enemy to attack. Then you would want to use Ray of Frost instead of Chilling Cloud. You'll still want your Magic Missile to make sure you maintain your Mastery stacks for that little bit of damage and for one of your encounter powers. This encounter power being Entangling Force. Now, there's multiple different encounter power setups you can use, but for this trial, generally the best is to just go with the stock standard single target powers, except for maybe the very beginning where you just have a group of enemies to beat up. Then you could go like Icy Terrain, Fireball, Conduit of Ice, and your Chill Strike on your tab ability, on your Spell Mastery, for them to all have that area of effects, and you'll get as much damage as you can against all those targets. However, it's not overly necessary. You'll do it if you're just chasing to a Paingiver board, and as soon as you go below the ship here where you're beating up lieutenants, you want to be single target. And that is where you just go with the general setup. If you're not the support wizard, you'll go with Icy Rays on your Spell Mastery. So here on PC it's tab. You'll have then Chill Strike, Repel, and Entangling Force. However, Entangling Force is important to make sure you have maximum Spell Mastery stacks to take full advantage of it, for it to deal the most amount of damage. If you don't have maximum Spell Mastery stacks, then you could end up actually just being better to have Fireball here, and then Icy Rays not on tab, just here with Repel and Chill Strike. This can be a better combo, and in single target, just pure single target boss fights, it might even be better to have this combo when you take advantage of Tactician's Precision, allowing you to cast this Fireball twice in an artifact call, versus Entangling, you would struggle to do so. We'll talk a little bit about more of that with our rotation, but in general, if you're the only wizard in the party, you want to have this setup. Ray, Icy Rays, Repel, Chill Strike. If you're not the only wizard and the other wizard uses Ray, then you could have Icy Rays here, Entangling, Repel, and Chill Strike. Again, for this trial, main at will is just Chilling Cloud and then Magic Missile for those mastery stacks. That's generally the most cases, and then Enchanter's Hex isn't really used. You can go without Magic Missile. I've done this already in the past, and then have your Fireball on tab here and Icy Rays. You may see this in my gameplay video that I posted at some point. For the daily powers, Ice Knife for pure single target damage, but otherwise Arcane Singularity for the massive area of effect damage. It is an absolute insane amount of damage. Like, if you have the option between using an Arcane Singularity or an Ice Knife on the boss, Arcane Singularity always, if there's multiple groups of enemies. It'll just net you an absolute ton of damage, combined with the bugs it has, triggering glowing flames and like smolder and directed flames, which it shouldn't, but it does, and it's just a ton. In this trial, I'm generally always just using Arcane Singularity. For the class features, it's mainly critical conflagration for the crit severity and the ability to place smolder on your target on a critical hit, and then combustive action, particularly in this trial. You have lots of enemies to kill, you're going to get all this action point regen, be able to cast your daily power an awful lot more. But again, if you're pure single target, you want to have that Swath of Destruction. If another wizard has Swath, you can go with Orb of Imposition. For the feats, it's just all this. There's nothing better than that when you are beating up multiple enemies combined with single target. If it's just pure single target fights, you can go with Rhymefire Weaving. It will net you more damage overall than your Directed Flames. Again, just on single target boss fights. So then for our power rotation, what you want to be doing? Well, at the beginning of the fight, in most cases, you're going to have an artifact call. And this is the most important time to get your damage out. You need to optimize this in order to be competing with the amount of damage. So make sure you have combat advantage against your target. So that's positioning. You have this arc. So the first thing we're going to do with an artifact call is use our artifact and then all of our burst damage. Everybody else, if it's a coordinated artifact call, will use their artifacts as well, and you'll create a burst window of just massive amount of damage. So again, depends what setup you're using. If you want to use this setup, which I have right here, then you can use Fireball, Repel, and usually Chill Strike before you use your daily power. Additionally, it will also depend when you use your mount power if you have Wicked Lich, which is the Vecta mount, or not. If you have this one, you want to use it a little bit earlier in the rotation to gain the 15% damage. Otherwise, you can wait a little bit later, because you always want to wait like 5 seconds after people have cast their artifacts to make sure everybody has cast it, including their like debuff mount powers, so that you have the maximum burst window where all the debuffs are on the boss and you're going to deal a maximum amount of damage. So let's say we are running with Ray of Enfeeblement right here. We're going to start things off with our artifact, then maybe a few at-wills, and then we're going to go Ray, Repel, Chill Strike, Mount Power, Daily Power, Icy Rays, Repel, and that's pretty much it for your burst. You're going to go Chill Strike right away when you can, and then Ray again, and pretty much just use everything when it's off cooldown. When you get near the artifact call again, so your artifact's coming off cooldown, make sure to like hold onto your encounter powers so that they're off cooldown. Don't cast them when they're not going to be off cooldown for that artifact call, so you can maximize your burst again. And that's pretty much it. You don't have to use your mount power that early on, just before the daily power, if you don't have the Wicked Lich, because then you're not having like that buff. If you have like Fireball on tab here, you can even better use that like just after you can even better use that with Tactician. So you'd use the artifact, then you're gonna go your Repel, Fireball, Chill Strike, Mount, Daily, Icy Rays, Repel, Fireball, and then we can probably go Chill Strike, just about squeeze that in, and that's it for your artifact call. You basically get to use a bunch of your encounters twice during the artifact call. Fireball and Repel especially, just about squeezing in Chill Strike. Icy Rays you generally can't because it just has too long a cooldown. Tacticians won't cut off enough. And basically what's happening is there we're using our daily and then we're reducing our cooldowns, allowing us to use them again during that artifact call, the big burst window for damage. So that's it for our rotation. We're going to go to our stats and the priority you want to take when building up your character. So on this build, when we're all maxed out, have all of those buffs from our gear we're gonna end up with 90% power, accuracy, combat advantage, crit strike, and crit severity. That's all great. All maximized for this trial. If you need to choose what to focus on first, well, it's going to be power, then combat advantage, then crit severity and crit strike, and lastly accuracy. Make sure to not forget some damage buffs. You'll have like weapons which will give you damage, boots here which give you damage, and in particular content you're going to have rings that'll have like 10% damage against Beholder, or rings with 10% damage against dragons. Make sure to use those if you're running that specific content a lot. Other than that, make sure to get item level to get this base damage. Some weapons will also give an extra boost to that base damage. So let's go to our gear and what alternatives can you use from what I am using. Well, first thing to note is this neck and waist set. It's not ideal. There is a better set than it, and that is called the Scintillant set. However, that is very expensive. It's from Mastercrafting, takes quite a lot to create, but have a look on your platform on the auction house and see if it's within your budget range. It will net you more damage than the Spelljammer set, this mythic Spelljammer set, because of the bonus the Scintillant set has and the ability scores of intelligence. This new Spelljammer set unfortunately doesn't have any of them that would give intelligence, so we're just going with the Constitution one there, and for the waist it doesn't really matter. But again, it's up to you what's within your budget range. I'm going to be using this set because it is cheaper and I can easily get it and I already have it. In this build, if you want to use this set, you need a different armor piece. You'll need the Mighty Cuirass for the combat advantage and the accuracy to make up for that difference that you would gain through the Detector set. So with that said, let's go to what I am using and what alternatives you could use. So this headpiece is from the Demon Web Pits Master Dungeon from the bosses. An alternative is simply from Dragon Hunt's the Serene Hood. Exact same bonus, just higher item level. The armor comes from your Master Demon Web Pits. It's just got the accuracy. Not much better options. But again, from Dragon Hunts, I would just take the Mighty Cuirass if you're newer. Dragon Hunts you can do on any level, so you should be able to get those. You just need somebody who's going to help you. These arms, Master Demon Web Pits again, got the crit strike. Alternatives, just run with the Mighty Vambracers from Dragon Hunts. And if you're not in a Raptor group, then these ones from Demon Web Pits would even be better, these Provoker Gloves. For the weapons, we're running the new weapons from the new trial. These ones mainly for the damage within the trial. Outside of the trial, you'll probably want to just run with the perfect weapons in boss fights, as those will give you the most amount of damage plus the stats. But in terms of your stats, you'll need to make sure you can fit the crit severity and crit strike. So on this build, when we look at the buff section, I would switch from using Squash Soup over to Watermelon Sorbet. You'll see you'll be able to fit the 5% crit severity, but as long as you use the damage weapons, we can use Squash Soup for that benefit. And then the boots, damage within wild space. Again, alternative to these, if you aren't on that level yet, haven't got those, you can just use like the primal boots from Chult. When you get a kill, you gain 3% action points, or you can get like the Wasteland Wanderers for the 5% combat advantage if you still miss those stats, or the ones from the Demaster Demon Web Pit, also with the combat advantage, just higher item level. Then we've already explained with the neck and the waist and the artifact set there. This set is a bit more on the budget end. You can maintain the stats from it. It's not as ideal as the Scintillant set, but if you don't have the Astro Diamonds to spend to get it, then don't. And there will probably always be another set coming out that's better anyway, so I'm personally not going to spend the Astro Diamonds to get the Scintillant set when you can still do very good damage just with this set instead. The rings are from Master Demon Web Pits, got accuracy there and encounter power damage there, and it creates a set which is 2.5% damage when you're 25 feet or closer to your target. Now alternatives to these are going to be ones from like Zemnit's Reliquary. You can get ones from the new trial as well that give like stats, but we can't really fit those in. You'd want to get like Beauty and Obligation as stepping stone rings from your Master Temple of the Spider to work up towards that, and otherwise ones from Dragon Hunts. So you'd get like this Critical Strike one here, and you could also get the Mighty Breaker's Ring of Clarity with 3% damage when you're 25 feet or closer to your target. Those would be good stepping stone rings when you've only just beating like dragon hunts. As for shirt and pants, these you can get from the auction house or doing heroic encounters within the Demon Web Pits campaign zone. Alternative to these is you could just get the new shirt and pants, these ones, but they're from the new trial, they're expensive, and this one will reduce your hit points, so not good for mitigation checks in certain trials. There's the corroded shirt still with the combat advantage, which is very good, from the auction house as well. And these trousers could be very expensive, so yeah, dragon hunt ones are good. Get any of the new ones as well, potentially with combat advantage if you miss the raiding. Otherwise, the covert brace raid breaches with the power and the defense are also very good from the auction house. So that is it for gear. Let's move on to our enchantments section. Here we're just running this setup. It only really matters in offense, so we've got a jade, 2 amethysts, and a cobalt, and in utility a garnet. In defense, optimally, you just have all garnets here. That way you get all the defense. That's generally the priority. Get your defense to 50% and then start stacking awareness. As we get higher item level, our defense stats just become worse and worse, and well, that's just going to be how it is, but we should still be able to survive mitigation checks as long as our healers are up to par and they use the correct damage resistance abilities for us. So glass cannon it is, and it works till now. Overloads in the new trial, we're just running Devil's Precision for the stats and Rage of Flames for the damage. You can go Astral Elf Overload. It will give you a little bit of a damage boost against just all these regular enemies and the lieutenants, just not the last boss. Captain Zurlar is unfortunately not considered an Astral Elf, at least for now. So Rage of Flames it is. Combat enchantment, absolutely Lightning Flash. And just bonus recharge speed. Don't be afraid to use movement speed if you need that. Don't really worry too much about the action point bonus. For the artifacts, you just want artifacts that have 1500 item level. So we have these ones right here. They are generally cheaper ones you can get, especially considering the Wand of Domination. Don't go out of your way to get that if it's just really expensive. There are alternatives like Mystic Bolt, Eye of Odran, so on and so forth, but you can even get away with just using 1200 item level artifacts or even lower. It's not that big a deal, and if you're just running scaled content anyway, then it really doesn't matter. You can just run the 600 item level unbound artifacts, switch them between characters. But for your primary, you ideally want one that's going to support this team, a debuff. So on this list that we have here, it would be the Crystal or the Spelljammer. Additional ones are all these top ones here that you can use. So then our race and ability scores, well, I'm running Wood Elf and I recommend it for you as well. You can run other races that give you offensive stats. But as for the ability scores, I recommend Intelligence and Charisma. However, when you're starting out, you might want to go Dexterity instead of Charisma if you don't have a nice green 90% crit severity. Then we go to our companions. So this is the page I'm using here. Striker companion, that's generally what you want to use. Augment companion, you won't really be able to fit the stats unless you're using one for defensive stats. I just generally use the Pseudo Dragon for everything. It's whatever. For the new trial, the best companion is the Minotaur Mercenary. Just with its crowd control effect, it's going to save lives, and it's just really good for grouping up enemies so you can all kill them easier. If you just want raw damage, well, even just a single target striker companion is going to do really well, like the Pseudo Dragon, Batiri, Black Death, Scorpion, any of the top ones that you see here. You can also check the AoE damage companions here. They'll just deal raw damage in area of effect fights. As for the companion gear, you will want to get upgrades, and there are cheaper ones than the ones I have right here. These are from the North Dark Reaches. Don't recommend if you don't have them already. They're expensive in terms of Astral Diamonds. Go to the new campaign, do some grinding, some questing, and you'll get enough currency to buy this stuff. I currently have ones, Accuracy and Combat Advantage. You'll probably want to get the Combat Advantage and Crit Severity ones here. Then switch out the Cobalt, don't use this enchantment, and use an Accuracy enchantment here instead, a Citrine. And then potentially with gear modifications, use some accuracy there instead of critical severity, and you'll be able to balance your stats. For our companion enhancement here, you'll generally want to use one that will support the team unless you're beating up groups of enemies, which is a lot of the time in this trial. You can only have the debuff affecting one enemy at a time, so a lot of people in the new trial will use something personal. So we would use in this build Perfect vision for the accuracy. Unless you're not maxed out on the other stats, focus, like I said in the stats section, there are ones that give power, combat advantage, critical strike, crit severity. As for the other companion equip bonuses, we have Minsk for the damage, the Knight for the damage, the Raptor for the power, and that gives it to our team as well. Batiri for the damage against bosses. It's very good in this trial because the lieutenants are considered bosses as well, and you get a lot of damage from those. And we have the Dark Dealer for combat advantage and accuracy. You might not be able to get the Dark Dealer, so I would just run the Alchemist instead here. Crit strike and combat advantage, much cheaper as well. Just be aware, I will do some messing around with some companion bonuses and the new insignia bonus, Enchanter's Hex. We may find one that does better than running, let's say, Neverwinter Night, or equally as effective. So if you don't have the Neverwinter Night, don't go spending millions to get it. Wait till it's either on sale somewhere, or hold out for that video and see if there's an alternative you can use instead of it. Otherwise, just use one that's going to give you bonus stats. That, again, is to the priority of what I said in the stats section if you're not already maxed out. So then we move to our mounts. Here in our current tab, we're using the Wicked Lich. It is still broken, double dips in combat advantage, and so deals nearly double demand damage than other mounts would deal. But the other mounts would be like your Golden Touch from the Warhorse, your Tunnel Vision from a lot of mounts, your legendary Giant Toad Tongue Lash, your Big Beast Hand. These are all very viable single target mount combat powers. Again, you use during an artifact call. For your AoE ones, your area of effect ones, there's like the Pegasus here, very good, and otherwise like the Vortex from the legendary Flying Carpet. For your equip bonus, right now we have slotted Opportunistic for the combat advantage. But if you're in a team which run like pack tactics, then ditch it. Just run Ferocity because they'll give you all the combat advantage you need and you'll be set instead of using Opportunistic. For the stable right here, this is our setup. These are the mounts we have and these are the bonuses. I recommend this setup. 2 tacticians. I would actually nearly get a third one if I had the mount, but there's only like 3 mounts right now that have it. 2 of them you can no longer obtain, that's the Hand and the Butterfly or something, and then the Demon Wings you can obtain. There's the Chariot we're using for Enchanter's Hex, Warlord's Motivation, and Warlord's Motivation to increase our companion. I have in the video description below a 4-slot mount document. You can see what other 4-slot mounts there are and alternative mounts you can use for those bonuses. For the insignias themselves, we have some skill, brutality, and we also have some aggression with also some dominance. So you can see them all here as we flick through them. For the colors, I only recommend focusing on encounter power damage and crit severity. The rest don't matter. Don't worry about upgrading colors either. It's not a priority. They're super expensive and I would generally not worry about it. So then we go to our boons. This setup is a little bit different to before. Again, I do not have a lot of boon points, but let's focus on what we need to prioritize specifically for this trial. So what you want to do is get all your power ones here, get your offensive stat ones here, get your movement speed, and then go and get your Forte, recharge speed, action points, and on the master boons, try and get your Bloodlust, your life lessons, and your blessed advantage. I need to get some more boon points, and then we can get that blessed advantage. It will give the recharge speed on rank 3 of 15%, which is just great when running party content. Guild boons are as follows. And so we go to our consumables and belt items. So we are running with Flask of Potencies, Squash Soup, Ratatouille, Sunlord's Gift Elixir, and an Invocation Blessing, which you can use to get like critical severity. So you'll use these until you see this icon, and there you go, you got it. Righteous Boon. As for the belt items, a Stone of Health for that clutch oh shit, make sure you get back to full HP, Dragonfire for damage, there's other ones you can use as well, and then a Spider Totem for the combat advantage. On this build, not so important. If you have a Portobello in the group, you won't need that combat advantage if you're running this set. You may need it if you're running the Scintillant set, where then you will switch again to the Mighty Koras to make up for that combat advantage difference, and then you'll probably be able to fit better the Portobello. But that is it for the build. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.